So I can't see myself.
You
Is
have
that
to say
cool?
that for everyone.
I do.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to ULPLM.
Universal Light, Pure Love Ministries.
I'm Aaron Fowler.
I'm Holistic Mystic Norma.
And we also have Theresa Lepre on the show with us. And we were basically just going to follow up on what we were talking about with Tammy, or what Norma and Tammy were talking about as far as human trafficking, things that we don't like to talk about, but we feel we need to, and people need to be informed, and how to approach it. You know, what is it you can do to help? I don't know. We'll just see where this conversation goes. But I've been doing a lot of, we've both been doing a little bit of research on it, and it's a hard discussion. They're hard topics to talk about, basically, and so we thought we would get up and talk about it because really not enough people are talking about it. There are some, Titus Frost, DeFango. There's some of the alternative news, Honeybee, Craig Sawyer, and this VOP, which I'll talk about in a little bit, which I don't know about them quite yet, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But anyway, so we would like to just basically talk about a little bit more on, kind of what our take is on it. So what is your take on it, Theresa?
It's a very delicate topic to discuss because it's a bittersweet topic, and many people have different views on the subject. The thing is, human trafficking has been going on since eons, and it's always been a hidden underground movement, which brings in a lot of money, a lot of pleasure for the seekers, and the public is usually the last to know. So it's not uncommon, but it does stir up many different types of emotions in people, whether you're spiritual or not. And that's totally understandable because we're in a paradigm where many people say that we should handle things in one particular way, but that doesn't work. Because when faced with a dangerous situations in that window of time, when you are faced with it, you will have to act swiftly. You would have to go by your emotions and the scene to actually know what you would do. So many people would rather donate or sweep it under the carpets, but there are people who have boots on the ground who do this type of work. And when you discover the horrific acts that human beings indulge in, there's a time where you either speak up or you turn another cheek. We're choosing to speak up because in the delicacy of the dialogue, what happens is that we are exploring what we could do, where we are at in a society that is multiverse in their opinions and how they carry out things. And even there is a divide in the spiritual community, how you should handle this, because people are coming in on different energy levels, and these energy levels are telling people where they should be. So it's very diverse, it's very delicate. I have my own personal view on it, how I view it, and how I understand that the bittersweet is sometimes something that is so intangible because we can't really touch it, but we feel it in our heart. So it's really a take that we want to discuss, and we want to have a broader spectrum, because through this movement we are moving the things into a news perspective that people do not want to talk about. And it is uncomfortable sometimes, because how do you intelligently look for solutions in a tender situation where the stronghold is so tight, because this intricate system that is being worked is backed by criminals, perverts, much money, and everyone is streamlining, and children are being moved, and governments are involved, and really it could be happening next door to you and you would never know. So it's really a delicate situation, and I personally take the stand for myself that I would advocate This is not something that I condone, because a spiritual person will automatically change their ways of destruction, so to speak, right, in any area
Yeah.
that they're faced with, and they will start reconstructing their life. And I believe that when you are innocent and you cannot make a decision and you are forced into something, your chances are almost nil of living any sort of a normal life. And how do people really rehabilitate from that? And then how can
Yeah.
we consciously come into who we are and turn another cheek? So it's very mixed and diverse for me, because I have many different emotions. And I can't say that I'm not angry, because I am angry, but I also understand the flip side of it and how this system works, and the advocation and the advocating for this is very slow, very, very
Yes.
Yeah.
painstaking. I don't think people realize that some people are on a stakeout 20, 30 days, and they think they have everything so timed out, because precision is important. And what happens is that the whole operation is blown. And then there's innocent children who have been programmed that this is normalcy, and they're afraid. So it's between child and perpetrator, and really, how do you reverse this? And that's
Uh,
really it.
and I think this is a good, one of the good first steps
Yep.
is really exposing it, talking
Yep.
about it,
Yep.
um, making people feel a little bit more comfortable to actually come forward.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a really dicey, thing to talk about, because yes, there are people from, the highest of the high,
Oh yeah.
some of the most powerful people that
Mhm.
are, I mean, really, renting kids for, go overseas and rent kids, and that's what they're getting these kids from. This human trafficking. They're going over to, some of these countries, the third world countries, and renting children,
Well, there
to
are countries, and
yeah,
Yeah.
because they're very
and here as well. It happens here too,
Yes. Yes.
just more in secret.
common here now. It's
Yep.
becoming more commonplace, but in rural countries where the poverty level is so high and the human level is so low, that you become a person that will participate in these acts, there's a distortion mentally, spiritually, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
integrity
that's
wise. There's a total distortion in the people who are partaking in it, because now you're going for the sublime, and it is the sublime at the cost of human condition. And human
Mm-hmm.
trafficking is not only in the sex trade, it's in enslavement. There are people who come here
Yep.
from other countries and they're enslaved. It's
Yep.
financial, it's drugs,
Yep.
it's all types
Yep.
of trafficking.
yep,
Organs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at the base of it, there's a huge amount of protection, money that's backing it, and just plain old people that want to participate in this, because that's how they get off. And to
Yep.
say that, people get shocked, because now if you actually are listening, you have to raise your conscious. And what do you do with it? What do you do with it? Some people can hear it, Aaron. They really
Yeah.
can. They really have to raise the vibration in a way where they might pray, or they tune it out. Or even I have heard some people in the collective, and it was very interesting, the streamline. That's why I impromptu you guys and say, come on, let's do this and let's expand out, because
Yeah.
there's so much emotion on it. How do you speak about it clearly, even though your heart is tearing apart inside? Because if you think about it, we all have children, and as we are participating in an awakening, we stop to think what's really going on. So where is our role? And like you said, speaking about it is really the first step, because it allows us to slowly introduce the shock wave, because it is a shock wave for a lot of people, and people want to act on emotion. And then what
Yep.
happens, it's almost a call out. What are you doing? Or I'm angry. How do we get together? But realizing that not all light workers want to participate in this
right.
work to raise awareness. But how can we come together and discuss it and say, look, this is human stuff. And you have to really go beyond the veil if you want to participate in that,
Yeah.
in something that is so degrading. And yes, we understand that there's many things that are going on, but when is it that we actually no longer turn the cheek and say, I'm raising a voice, and I might not be able to reverse it quickly, but through advocating within humankind, I could raise awareness and make you feel very uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. We want people to become uncomfortable because we want people to put their heart into it and say, look, you know, these things that we go through are not easy. And especially someone who has experienced sexual abuse as a child, and now they are introduced to this because this was something that was put on the back burner. Not only do their emotions come up, right, that they are trying to cope with, but now you're really seeing it in your mind's eye and you're visualizing it. And in those split seconds, I don't know what I would do. If I,
Right.
you know, you can't say that you would act in one particular way, because if you are jumping in to save someone,
Mhm.
you are thinking on pure adrenaline. Pure adrenaline.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. And
Yeah, it's go ahead.
sorry, too often we do. We find these stories where we hear these things, and our emotions are stirred, you know, especially when we do know that there is truth behind these things. And that's when it's the most important to, okay, yes, feel it, know it's there, but take a step back for a minute and truly observe the situation, because too many times we cause more trouble than we help when we jump in with that pure emotion.
Yeah, because we ride in like the Wild Wild West, and the Wild Wild West and blazing saddles with no plan, because they're very
Right.
smart, the people who are behind this. They're always one step ahead. So if it's one step ahead, and then there are governmental factors that are are covering up as well, because corruption is so widespread spread. And you know, we have to admit that there are people who have no value in human life,
Right.
have
Yeah.
no. So how do we come together as a collective and discuss it? Because there are many people in our community that they feel that the 144,000 are the most important, and we're
Yeah.
speaking symbolic now, and that as the tribes are coming out, what is happening is everybody is introducing this source of love, but it's also a misguided source of love, because if you are doing anything you want and you are just experimenting with the energy, you have really no plan to change human beings.
Right.
And look, we're going to go through things. We're going to feel things, and we're going to meet many different people on our journey, and some people will make an impact and some people won't. But we are very in a label type system where your style and your rank and what you could do and the highest bidder wins, that there's no communication. Or what about we just want to be ourselves, and you know, we want to talk, and like, what are your thoughts? And okay, I get all this what you're searching for, but give me 5 minutes to come into my own and to make my own decisions and ground this as
Yeah.
we are feeling our way through the situation. And that's for some difficult, that's a difficulty within human nature to do.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
And I think it's hard. I think we've talked about this before, you know, when you've been on, is really that emotion, you know, that's an emotional thing. So when somebody hears that, I mean, it pisses you off. You know,
absolutely,
it's very upsetting.
yes, it,
And we can tend to kind of run in all guns blazing, like you said, without really, you know, sitting with it, processing it, letting it kind of a story develop. Like on, you know, right now I'm kind of going through. I mean, I got excited the other day, I'll admit it, over a VOP, and
so
there's some, you know,
about that. You
supposedly
can
in.
explain that to me, and I'm interested in knowing what you have uncovered about this new organization.
I
That
didn't
is,
uncover anything, but
No.
I've basically watched people
okay.
that I've watched for a while.
So what have you learned?
Unirock, he's on YouTube. He
Okay.
does some really good investigative stuff online or on YouTube. And he kind of did a deep dive into it and just checked the backgrounds of some of these people. And there's been some other videos come out. Well, basically, this veterans on patrol is what they are.
Okay.
And they're basically, I think, what they're doing, to my understanding, and you might want to do some more research on it.
We still are.
But this person, he's basically running this organization. He's not a vet, but he's representing for the vets, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally commendable. But what I worry about is people, especially in the alternative news or alternative community, as far as content creators,
right?
If they're working for the people or if they're working for some kind of political side. So say, hey, look at all these kids and we're busting them, and you know what I mean, and kind of pushing them in a certain narrative, right? Because a lot of that's going on right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the narrative pushing.
And it's a double-edged agenda. And that is really what you have to discern too, because what happens is that when these cases are brought before you, the first thing that is affecting you is the adrenaline rush of the heart. You're angry and you're shocked and you want to go into it because now you feel you have to save. But you don't take a step back and say, well, really, what is the agenda? And you're going to find that, people have all sorts of agendas, and some people do things with genuineness of their heart. But unraveling this very intricate weave that we exist in, it's like really like you make a choice. And I think that's another thing. People become very influenced. I made a choice in my life, and I was asked, did you do it because you don't like to participate, or are you too busy, etc., so on? And actually, I'm totally honest. I made that choice because what was before me was not satisfying me, and it almost was becoming something that wasn't enjoyable for me because it was there was no substance, right? So I rather do things in substance because then you can give yourself more freely to the task at hand, whatever you're doing. And that's general, and it applies to everything in a person's life if they're really real. But how many people really want real? We're a small community, and even in our community, we have dealt with so many issues, especially in the last year, as these movements are trying to streamline, say, what's happening with the human stuff, and there's always drama. We're coming against so many things. How do we apply it? Because all these topics are delicate, and all these topics people don't want to talk about because they're not popular, right? They're not really popular, and they're things that are downers, and we want an instantaneous fix. But as you move and you become into yourself, all those other things dissipate and fade away.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's just it. You want to be able to kind of, get yourself in that position, no matter what's coming at you. You want to be able to step outside for just a sec to kind of give yourself that minute to figure it out. And you may not get it all right at that moment while you're in that moment, but give yourself a second enough to at least respond accordingly,
Yes. Or why can't we say, I don't know at the moment how I truly feel about this because it's just being introduced to me. I want to figure it out, and I want to make that choice based on the choices that are before me and my own judgment, rather than what is being presented to me as something that I have to accept or not. So it's very interesting because on this whole platform, there's many people coming in, and now you even hear people that are doing shows that they're speaking to everyday people of their experience about ascension, or what they are doing, or how they are collectively coming together and becoming creative. But that's also a double-edged sword, because when you listen to many people and you hear their stories, you also have to take note that the human condition is still healing and people are very injured in many ways. So now as you're rising, instead of constantly speaking about the lesson, or it's being presented to you because it's never about you, it's always about them. It's always about you, it's never about them. I think that
Right.
that's really like dialogue that should be faded out a bit, only because of the fact is that as you learn and you progress, when these situations happen, you should say, your radar should go on, yes, I would love to engage, but I can't because I've already been down that road. So maybe the universe brought that to me to see how I handle it, what I attract.
Yep.
This is
Yeah.
all sorts of things that apply to everything that we deal with. And even as we discuss the delicate issues, because there are people who think that this is just the way it is on the timeline and everything as it should be. Personally, I say we are changing timelines and we are changing the very things that keep us encroached in a vile persona. And that's why people are closed off, and that's why people are guarded, and that's why people then they give selective.
Yeah, in my opinion, in my view of that, I mean, that is actually a form of being asleep. Apathy is sleeping.
Apathy.
Being apathetic is being sleepy. You're dozing off. You're not living a life. I mean, you see a car wreck on the side of the road, and that's a hard thing. It's like you were saying, that adrenaline's pumping. Who knows what you would do?
Yeah, have to be spontaneous.
But, you may be the only one there to help that person. And so think about that.
What happens if something goes horrifically wrong, right? Or what happens if it goes very smooth? Like the point I'm trying to make is when you jump into something, if you are coming from a genuine place, you can always control the outcome.
Right.
And these are the very afflictions that we live with, because aren't we healing from those afflictions? Aren't we discussing it? But I noticed that what's happening is that, look, pain is pain, Aaron, right? Norm, pain is pain. No matter how you experience it, when you feel a deep pain, that's a deep pain in your heart, right? And we want to acknowledge that, and we want to say, look, we can't take everything away, but what happens is when you look in your side yourself, you begin to understand yourself, but how you treat others, and you don't get tripped up in all this unnecessary stuff that is before you, because a lot of it is unnecessary. It fades away. It's like, what is that expression, dangling a carrot before someone?
Yep.
So like old, and that's so cliche, and I say we do away with that, because if people are going to like you, they're going to like you no matter what. And if people are going to interact with you, and everyone has a past, you should be able to say in true friendship, as time goes on, this is what happened in my life. This is what
I shouldn't have to question. That's what we're headed for. That's what we're doing is, I think a lot of our, the powers that be, whatever, are maybe hopefully starting to realize that this world is heading toward transparency. We're in a transparent universe right now, because of all the information we have, because of WikiLeaks, because of truth tellers, because of whistleblowers, that are willing to risk their lives to get the truth out of how our governments are dealing with the public and their people. And I think, this goes all the way down to us and to you in your own, community, at home, is just being more transparent. And I think the best way to do that is just being authentic. Don't come from a bad place or a place that, people are starting to question for, if you're getting questioned a lot, which we're all going to get haters being on here. If you're in the public eye on here, you're going to get some flack. That's just the way it works. But if you're constantly defending yourself, it's time to look maybe at yourself
People
you
defend
know?
themselves because they want to create in their own mind's eyes and in the community a way that keeps them comfortably numb, because everybody
Yeah.
is healing with a band-aid on them. And when you really take that band-aid off and the rawness is exposed, you either heal it or it continues to decay. And that's really the bottom line. And we are human beings and we're going to have a life.
Yeah.
And you know, I am super cool person, but I also have a cutoff switch, and I'm very direct, and I do things with respect. But I don't get tripped up if I like you. I like you genuinely for who you are.
Yeah.
And I gotta get to know you. I'm the first to say, well, I'm that person. I need to get to know somebody because I want to determine for myself if I want to even be in their space. But people
Right.
sell themselves short because they stay sometimes in other people's space because maybe they could do something for me, or maybe, you know, if I'm not in that space, I'm not popular. Maybe if you let people really see you and you have a genuine conversation, you could like really just be free of all the dogma that is before you. And yes, we all play many different roles and wear many different hats, especially
Oh
in
yeah.
this
And
platform.
we all get tripped up.
Yeah.
It's just
Absolutely.
some of us get tripped up. We don't get tripped up so long for such a long period of time. You know, some others do. Others do it for that purpose. Others dangle that carrot in front of your face so they can lead you by the nose. That's what they're doing. You know, maybe an expectation of something to come, or you know, here we go. You know, that reminds me of like a used car salesman commercial or something, or like a movie. You know, a movie. What do they call them? Trailer, right? The teaser. There's always a teaser there. There's always a, you know, the taste. Oh, I'll give you a little taste, but you
Always
know,
leave them wanting more.
more to come.
Want
You know,
more.
that's that's stagecraft 101 right there.
Yeah.
Absolutely it
Yeah.
is. So it's like
Yeah.
you have to really like I have this motto that I live by now. I mean, it's like I don't let those things affect me because it is what it is. And if
Yep.
you are genuine, you should be able to hold your own in any space that you're in. And when we wear
Yeah.
many hats, we wear those many hats. Like personally, I wear those hats so I could understand. I don't want people to have to understand me when I'm on this platform. I want to understand you because my expertise is to work the energy, right? Is to be a
Yeah.
voice. When you are that voice, you have to be totally unbiased. And sometimes we all do things because we all like that little bit of attention, or we're on these platforms because it is attention for us. But then you have to discern what's real, what's heart, what's soul, what
Yeah.
makes sense, who's healing on air. And as they're healing, they are also given advice, but that's for a select few of people, And when you are on a multi-base platform, can you actually be diverse and talk about everything and anything without attachment, but still hold your own personal views? Because that's what we're doing up here. We're
Right.
discussing without attachment because we're not bringing the personal feelings in, because we
Right.
all have personal feelings. We would be
Oh
lying
yeah.
if we said we didn't, right?
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
what we're
Right.
doing is we're coming into our own and say, look, we need solutions, and I don't have it all right, but there are people who are naturally intelligent where they could put things in place. Let's bounce off one
Right.
another some ideas and actually see where we can make the impact. There's a difference
Right.
between making the impact than raising awareness with a very loud voice and nothing gets done. Sometimes the biggest impact you make is low key and under the radar. And I think that people should be aware of that. But we all want to be seen and we want to be heard, and we
Yep.
want these gifts to come flowing out. But really, it's a way of life that allowed us to be totally comfortable in our own skin, no matter who we're speaking with. And I think that people are afraid to do that because then it takes away, they think, of their, their inner circle, of their crowd, who they have to
Right.
influence. And I'm like, at the end of
So
the
basically, point is, before we went off into a totally different place.
day,
Sorry, folks. Um, that's what we were talking about, is just be really careful and be aware of what you're watching, and people that are trying to strike an emotion in you or sell you a miracle or, whatever, or tell you, we're working on it, we're doing this, and that's with the human trafficking and the child abuse and child trafficking. That's what's going on. And a lot of times they'll flip it around.
Yeah.
So they'll use this controlled opposition, which is get on both sides and then you can control it.
Yeah.
Right. So get on both sides of the
table,
which I think has been happening with firearms and
everything.
Really, abortion,
all the big fights.
Those things that we always get into fights over. That politically they always get into fights over. Then they get everybody else fired up. All the while they're all sitting at the same table drinking a big glass of wine and smoking a big fat cigar. I mean, that's just a little just a figure of speech, but true.
But because if people have to really be authentically raw about the situation, they will have to say that human trafficking is business. It's business that allows people to live luxurious lives. And it starts on different levels because it's almost like a pyramid. First, the survival, the bare necessities at the very lowest seed. And then it starts trickling upwards instead of, and people hide this because nobody wants to ever get their hands publicly dirty, right? So it's really a catch-22, and it's human defiance, and it's human BS, and it's like, really, what are we doing? You have to be responsible for yourself. You're responsible for yourself. Speak about it. Support who you think is making a difference as you are coming into a place and time where you are actually raising a voice rather than what you said. We're very much asleep, and they pit us against one another, so we're always caught up in the debate and the argument because it becomes very personal instead of collective. And that really is the truth of it. And there is no gray line in between. This is really a black and white type of thing. And a black and white type of thing sometimes is the most bittersweet because you're in the roar, you're in the belly of the beast with that. And, and you're like, okay, this is face. This is not blinking away. That type of real.
Yeah, and that's kind of life. You pick. I mean, we all stumble, but some people can talk themselves into completely doing something they know is probably not right and probably misrepresenting, but they do it anyway. Whether that be for money, whether that be for some type of a political agenda. In the long run. Just be aware. Because I got fired up the other day watching this, and I'm like, whoa. And then as I saw it kind of develop, like you said, let it develop. I see that there are some things that maybe could be questioned. I'm not saying anything about this certain situation, but other than I don't know right now. But I do know, and I know that there's enough investigative citizen reporters that have been doing a lot of research on this. I mean, they've been working on it for years, and I've been watching them. What was that?
No, finish, and then I'll interject with what
it's just based. There's a lot of information. If you wanted to go to YouTube, you're not going to see it on mainstream. I mean, you may see. I think they made something not too long ago. Was it? There was some kind of series they made that talked about it a little bit, and the MK Ultra and the programming, because a lot of these families come from that, and that's one other aspect of it is some of these elite families that are programming their children. Or programming, other people's other neighbors' children, or I've heard some towns that it's really rampant, that a lot of the controlling and the programming, and they're kind of doing it right now, but they're getting busted because their whole trying to control narratives is over because there's too many people speaking up. And I see the more that people speak up about these things, if they see something and somebody may be coming at a good, saying they're coming from a benevolent place, but all the while kind of behind your back doing something totally different, they're not able to get away with the things they used to.
No,
and that's kind of what's going on right now.
People trip themselves up, and I think that is propaganda to ever be so naive that you don't question things and to really put things in their perspective, because in the black and white of it all, it's happening on many levels. So you could debate it and you could say whatever you want. It's happening. And now some people will sweep it under the carpet. Some people won't. Some people, their hands will be tied. Some people are in that network and system, and they're doing things like to turn it around. But when you look, this is really where it's at in human nature. If you ever think about someone who's very radical, right? And they
Yeah.
do things with violence. They could be one person, and you could have 10 people who want peace. You bet your bottom dollar the radical person will always end up being a leader and pulling the strings in violence. And that's because they are prepared for violence and they will pull the trigger. Where the fear factor from the people who want peace, they won't pull the trigger, and they're in this
Right.
compliance. So now what do you do? What do you do about that? And then when you're faced with that, that is a personal decision and a choice you make. Where does your ethical concept of self come in? And I'm going to say it just like that. And do you have it? And is it because maybe you do have it, but your hands are tied, or maybe you don't know how, or maybe you're afraid? Because fear will tear people down. Violence
Yeah.
will put people into a place that leads them into compliance because their fear of the death factor, but their soul is already dead. You're already dead
Yeah.
because you're afraid to live. You're afraid of everything. And now
Paralyzed.
Yep.
you're paralyzed. Good word.
Yep. Or making bad mistakes because of your fear. Yeah, which
Yeah.
those two things usually happen. That you're either paralyzed in fear and it's the fight or flight, right? Or do or don't. Like run and hide, or you become aggressive.
Absolutely, you're riding or dying. So, like, where is the genuineness, and really, where is the fine line? And we can discern that, and that's
Right.
what
Yeah.
I do every day. I discern that, and things are what they are, and I don't. I'm very like I don't want to play games. I could play games, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't want to like be. It's a choice that I made because I understand that Shark Tank. I choose like that's like irrelevant because you know what? You'll eat me and spit me out. You'll do that to 10 other people and like you're not even happy with yourself. And this is a cycle that goes on and you know, like enough is enough type of a deal, but yet still maintain this way of being, this ultra sensitive, you know, response that we have towards people that we care about. And so that's corny to people and that's weak. I'm so not weak, you know what I mean? I have this strength that I could hold and I'm interested. Like, that's cool. You feel that way? Okay. You know, like that type of thing. But if you enter my life, right? And if I am comfortable enough to allow that flow. And I say it just like that because I'm not comfortable with just anybody. I'm the type of person that I have to develop something to make my own choices. So yes, everybody comes in from that starting point of yes, we're gonna see where it goes, but that doesn't mean I have to just give it away. I like to feel my way through because I would expect the people I interact with to be upfront with me like I am with them. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And with my fault, with the days that I curse, with the days that, you know, my hair is up and I'm having a bad hair day and like I don't want 100 people on me. Why is that so wrong? That's not wrong. That's something to rebuild inside. So I think that we're afraid to discuss all these things that go into the heading of trafficking, because once you start conditioning people to your way without raising what you're trafficking, no matter what. So we're talking about child trafficking because that was something we're elaborated on. We wanted to extend it out, but really it's trafficking in all its formality. And what do you do?
You keep talking about it, and as you do, hopefully somebody hears it and comes up with a really good idea, or hopefully one of us comes up with a good idea, and we have we come up with solutions. But we won't come up with solutions if we're not talking about it.
No, and there are people that have the boots on the ground mentality that they're out there because it's painstaking work and it takes hours. It takes dedication, and it takes going into places and going underground. Everyday people sometimes who are sustaining families who are very
Yep.
pro towards a solution, they can't do that. So then it
Yeah.
becomes, well, what are you doing? And where's the game? But if we raise the voice and say, we're going to be mindful in our communities, and if we see
Yeah.
things that are not right, or if we hear things not right, um, we're gonna raise that voice. And it's a very fine streamline because it's in all communities, from your poorest
Yep.
communities to your richest communities. And that's what you have to think, because most people think, oh, it's only at the low end of the chain. And what is the low end of the chain?
No.
That's how you
Yeah.
regard human life.
Yeah, it's all throughout. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Is there's
The big
I've
classism thing.
I have reason to believe through research I've done and things I've seen that there's actually some of these people that are supposed to be protecting against this
Yeah.
are involved in it.
Oh yeah.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
some of the heads of the Amber Alert are involved, people that were
Yeah.
involved in the whole Haiti scandal, with all the children that were missing from there or trying to take children from there.
Isn't
I
that
think her name is
crazy?
Laura Silsby.
You,
Yeah, it's just, they're just shoving it in our face. And a lot of people don't even realize it.
Yeah.
you have this certain coldness in you to do that. Like, that's a
Yeah.
dead still coldness, and like a no emotion thing, because you're not even thinking about that. And then you wonder why that some people go off and there's violence surrounded by that, because in that split second it's like no mercy on top of no mercy, because now how do you annihilate it? And it's some sick
Yeah.
stuff going on, man.
Yeah.
And you just
Yeah,
like,
it is.
wow, it's totally sick. It's like, holy moly, guacamole. How low can you go? And people do go low, very low.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And we want to raise that.
I don't ask how low can you go anymore, because people can go pretty
Yeah,
low.
these are networks. A lot of these are networks. I mean, it happens, just in
regular,
a regular family, no
unfortunately, as
connection.
well,
But a lot of this is widespread because of, mob type of connections, organized crime type of connections, and I'm thankful. Anybody who would like to turn in anybody or is thinking about it, please do. I mean, of course, get your protection. But if anybody would like to maybe use us as a mediary, we can help you out, or just, calling the authorities. There's many that do. There's many whistleblowers out there that are, in danger, but they're still willing to save their fellow humans, right, and themselves, and that's commendable. And I give a lot of credit to all of those who are doing that and that are stuck in that situation or were. I'm sending my love to you.
You're a good guy, Aaron Fowler. So
You're a good girl, Theresa Lepre. Well, we better let's finish this up. I want to see if we have any questions, but we have another show coming, so I want to have a little bit of intermission time before we do that.
Absolutely.
We're freezing up a little.
So we're rocking and rolling. We're getting out. I guess that I think you froze.
Yeah, I did. Can you hear me?
I could hear you. I can't. You're frozen.
You're frozen too.
Okay, so why don't you just take us out?